Nne mụrụ nwa ebezi n'akwa, nna mụrụ nwa ebezi n'akwa, Jesu na ndị mmụọ ozi ekwerugo. Ihe anyị ga-eme bụ ekpere ka Jesu nara ya na ndokwa. This is the song Mama Obinna's friends and well-wishers were singing as they came to pay their respects. Mama Obinna was a hardworking petty trader in the bustling streets of Enugu State in eastern Nigeria. Every day, she carried her woven basket of goods, working tirelessly from morning to night, all to ensure her son Obinna had a better future. Her husband, a quiet but supportive man, worked as a carpenter, taking pride in his modest home they built together. Life was not easy, but they found joy in their only child, Obinna, a boy with a bright smile and even brighter dreams. From the moment he could talk, Obinna spoke of becoming someone great, someone who would change the fate of his family. When Obinna turned 12, he received an admission letter to one of the prestigious boarding secondary schools in the region. Though they lived modestly, Mama Obinna and her husband promised to send him to the best school they could afford, believing education was the key to a brighter future. They sold more goods and worked longer hours, scraping together every naira for his tuition and supplies. On the day they dropped him off at the school gate, Mama Obinna hugged her son tightly, whispering, "Work hard, my son. We are proud of you." Little did they know, this was the last time they could see Obinna alive and happy. Obinna's first week in boarding school was overwhelming but filled with curiosity and hope. The vast compound, structured classroom, and rows of dormitories fascinated him. He quickly made friends with other boys his age, sharing stories about their families and dreams for the future. Obinna's enthusiasm for learning made him a favorite among his peers. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly exciting environment, an unspoken fear of senior students lingered. As the days turned into weeks, the darker side of the school began to reveal itself. The senior boys, who ruled the dormitories with iron fists, started targeting Obinna. They demanded his provisions, food, and even his pocket money. Obinna, too scared to resist, complied with their every request. He often went to bed hungry, his stomach growling in the silence of the night. Despite this, he hid his struggles from his parents during the occasional phone calls, not wanting to worry them. The bright-eyed boy, who once laughed heartedly, was slowly losing his spark. The bullying escalated as weeks passed. The seniors turned their attention to physical punishment, slapping Obinna for the smallest perceived mistakes. They made him run errands and forced him to wash their clothes, leaving him no time to rest or study. His grades began to drop, and his once cheerful demeanor faded into a quiet, timid shell. The food his parents had packed with so much love was long gone, taken by the seniors who gorged themselves on his provisions. Obinna's weight began to drop drastically, and his friends worried about his condition. They tried to encourage him to report the abuse, but fear kept Obinna silent. He had seen other boys who dared to speak out punished even more severely. At night, he would cry himself to sleep, clutching the pillow tightly to muffle his tears. His dreams of becoming great seemed so far away now, overshadowed by the daily torment he endured. Back home, Mama Obinna often felt uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. She noticed that Obinna sounded less enthusiastic during their calls, his once lively voice now dull and tired. She asked if everything was alright, but Obinna assured her that it was just the stress of adjusting to new school life. Though his words offered some comfort, Mama Obinna could shake the nagging feel that her son was hiding something. She and her husband continued to work tirelessly, putting away money to ensure Obinna's education. Mama Obinna even prayed extra each night, asking God to watch over her son. Her maternal instincts screamed that something was wrong, but she didn't know how to act on it. The thought of her only child struggling in silence was too painful to bear, and she consoled herself with the belief that everything would be fine. By his second term, Obinna's health had deteriorated significantly. His once round cheeks were hollow, his uniform hung loosely on his thin frame, and he struggled to keep up with the daily routine. The bullying from the seniors became more brutal, leaving visible marks on his body. They pushed him to his physical and emotional limits, often taunting him and telling him he was worthless. One fateful day, after enduring another round of beating, Obinna collapsed in the dormitory. His friends rushed to his side, but the senior student warned them not to report the incident. Weak and unable to move, Obinna whispered a plea for help, but his voice was barely audible. That night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he would ever see his parents again. The call came in the early hours of the morning. Mama Obinna answered the phone, her heart racing as the school principal informed her of Obinna's passing. The world seemed to stop as the world sank in. She let out a piercing scream, dropping the phone and collapsing to the ground. Her husband rushed to her side, picking up the phone to hear the rest of the devastating news. The school claimed that Obinna had succumbed to a sudden illness, but as more details emerged, the truth about the bullying and starvation could no longer be hidden. Mama Obinna was inconsolable, her cries echoing through the small house. The vibrant boy she had sent off with so much hope was gone, his life cut short by cruelty and neglect. The days following Obinna's death were a blur of tears and sorrow. Mama Obinna refused to eat or leave her bed, consuming by the loss of her only child. Friends and well-wishers came to offer their condolences, but their words and comfort did little to ease her pain. Each visit reminded her of the boy she could never see again, the boy who has brought so much joy into her life. Her husband, though equally heartbroken, tried to stay strong for her sake. He took on the role of organizing the funeral arrangements, ensuring that Obinna would have a proper burial. The small house that was once filled with laughter and love now felt empty and cold, a constant reminder of the tragedy that had befallen their family. Obinna's funeral was a heartbreaking affair, attended by family, friends, and neighbors. The small village church overflowed with mourners, all shocked by the untimely death of a young boy. Mama Obinna sat at the front of the congregation, her face pale and devoid of expression. Her tears long spent, she clutched a photograph of Obinna, taken during happier times, as the priest spoke about the fleeting nature of life. As they lowered the small coffin into the ground, Mama Obinna let out a wail that pierced the hearts of everyone present. The sight of her only child being buried broke her resolve, and she collapsed to the ground, crying uncontrollably. Her husband held her tightly, his own tears streaming silently. The villagers whispered among themselves, cursing the cruelty that had led to the boy's death and lamenting the pain left behind for his grieving parents. News of Obinna's death spread quickly, prompting an outcry from both the community and the school. The school administration initially tried to downplay the incident, claiming it was an unfortunate illness. However, rumors of bullying and abuse soon began to surface, thanks to Obinna's friends who bravely spoke up about what had been witnessed. An investigation was launched, and the police began questioning students and staff. The accounts of relentless bullying, starvation, and physical abuse were too demeaning to ignore. Evidence of negligence on the part of the school authorities also came to light. Mama Obinna and her husband attended every hearing. The pain reignited with each new revelation. The truth was undeniable. Their son has been failed by the very people entrusted with his care. After weeks of investigation, the senior students responsible for Obinna's sufferings were arrested and brought to trial. The courtroom was packed as the evidence was presented, including testimonies from Obinna's friends and even few teachers who had suspected the bullying but failed to intervene. The boys showed little remorse, and their cold indifference only fueled the anger of those in attendance. The judge handed down a harsh sentence, ensuring that the perpetrators would face the consequences of their action. While justice was served, it brought little comfort to Obinna's parents. For them, no punishment could bring their son back or erase the memories of his suffering. They left the courtroom, hand in hand, their hearts heavy with grief and anger. In the months that followed, Mama Obinna and her husband struggled to adjust to life without their son. The house that was once echoed with Obinna's laughter now left unbearably quiet. His empty room became a place of mourning, untouched and preserved as it had been the day he left for school. Mama Obinna spent hours sitting on his bed, holding his belongings and reliving memories of happier times. Her husband buried himself in work, using physical labor as a distraction from the pain. Though they rarely spoke about their grief, the weight of their loss hung heavy in the air between them. Their once close-knit bond began to fray under the strain, leaving them both isolated in their sorrow. Mama Obinna often found herself lost in memories of Obinna's childhood. She would sit by the window, staring at the road he used to run along with his friends, his laughter ringing in their ears like a distant echo. She remembered how he used to help her sell goods at the market, always charming customers with his politeness and bright smile. Sometimes, the memories brought a bittersweet comfort, but other times, they were too painful to bear. She couldn't help but think of how different things might have been if she had chosen a different school or had recognized the sign of his suffering sooner. The weight of guilt and regret became her constant companion, robbing her of peace. The couple's relationship began to suffer under the strain of their grief. Mama Obinna became withdrawn, spending most of her days in silence or weeping quietly. Her husband, unable to express his pain, grew frustrated and distant. They fought often, their argument fueled by the unspoken blame they both carried. Despite the effort of family and friends to console them, their pain seems uncontrollable. The once strong bond they had shared as family felt irreparably broken. Both wondered if they could ever find a way back to each other, or if their grief could forever keep them apart. The community, deeply moved by Obinna's tragic story, rallied around the grieving parents. The village women often visit Mama Obinna, bringing food and sitting with her in silence, offering quiet companionship. The men spoke with her husband, encouraging him to seek strength in his faith and his wife. The local church organized a memorial of Obinna, dedicating a plaque in his honor. The gesture touched the family deeply, reminding them that their son's life, though short, and left an impact. Slowly, the couple began to feel the faintest glimmers of hope, though their path to healing was still long and uncertain. Determined to ensure that no other child would suffer as Obinna had, his parents started a campaign to raise awareness about bullying in school. They shared their story with local organizations and worked with the government to push for stricter and anti-bullying policies. Their efforts gained widespread attention and they became advocates for safer school environments. Though their grief remained, their work gave them a sense of purpose. They channeled their pain into something meaningful, determined to honor their son's memory by protecting other children from the fate he has suffered. In doing so, they began to find a measure of healing and peace. Years later, Mama Obinna still carried the pain of her loss, but she has learned to live with it. She often visited Obinna's grave, bringing fresh flowers and speaking to him as though he could hear her. She told him about the changes their efforts had brought, the lives they had touched, and the children who now had a safer future because of him. Though Obinna will forever remain 12 in her heart, his memory lived on in the work his parents had done. The community remembered him as the boy whose life sparkled a movement, and his parents found solace in knowing that his short life had made a difference. Together, they built their lives, carrying Obinna's legacy with them every step of the way. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me. To new people who found my page, please do like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.